So here we are in the Museo Leonardiano in Vinci, the place of Leonardo da Vinci's birth, and I'm here with Pietro and Alex. And Pietro, what are we doing here?
Well, we're here because Alex and me are preparing a video game themed on the Renaissance and Da Vinci. And well, it started a couple of years ago when we met by chance, and I was studying game design, and Alex was, as usual, working on Renaissance technology and exhibitions in museums. And we started talking about the possibility of creating a video game that would deal with Renaissance, Da Vinci, and technology in a new way.
Okay. That sounds interesting. Alex, do you know this place quite well?
Yes, I've been working for a long time here, and I was in charge of the design of the new exhibits in 2010, and my work here started a long time ago in 1996 as a teacher for the multimedia team here inside the museum. Then the multimedia team, now it's no longer there, so I was personally involved in the creation of new multimedia contents and then of the design of the new layout of the museum. So yes, that's kind of my job.
Okay.
And so I'm quite experienced in all the matters of Renaissance technology, Leonardo da Vinci, and other people that lived at the time and worked together.
Engineers.
Yeah, artists.
I see.
At the time.
So, am I right in thinking that you have made some of these models here in the museum, or?
I contributed to the design of some models. I personally worked on the animations and some contents too. Some studies. I was involved in some kind of research. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That sounds challenging. Yeah, to bring to life some of Leonardo's actual designs.
Yeah, Leonardo actual designs, and then not only the reconstruction of the whole technological and cultural world that surrounded Leonardo. Leonardo is an extraordinary witness of his times, and through his folios, his codices, and all things he has drawn, he has written. We have a rough idea of the whole world that surrounded him at the times, and other people in the political context. It's very, very interesting. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, how are you two working together? Do you want to explain a little bit about who works on the game and who works on other aspects, or do you work together on each?
Yeah. Well. In fact. We started together because, as you were just saying, as this period is so particular, so peculiar, and so involves so many different fields, and which at the time, which may be one of the only time in history where they were treated. People that were doing paintings, and at the same time they were engineers, scientists. And soldiers, and they were studying, like you could be a pope and a soldier at the same time, and and a banker. And so we necessarily started doing the game design together because we had to somehow integrate. Alexander guided me through the study of the history and the technology of the time, and then. Somehow we also from the beginning, and that's how the project came out in the end, wanted to have both digital, so video game, an educational sort of video game, but also fun, which is an open problem, but also we wanted to have some real, handcrafted material to be produced, like the machines you see in this museum, because Alex didn't say so, but he also has a lab where he produces museum quality machines.
Okay, so this is going to be a video game, but it's kind of got a board game feel to it. Alex, you have some history, or you and your family?
Yes, my father is a quite well-known board game designer.
Okay.
So I was kind of sort of acquainted with this kind of stuff. And but our goal is not only to make a fun game, But we hope to make a bit clearer the history of the Renaissance. What people sometimes miss is that Renaissance was a period in which the most important thing was not just the military things, but was something that has to do with magnificence.
Yeah, and how people ruled via prestige, which is something in current times maybe we can understand more. But it wasn't just a military question. And which became more important afterwards. But during the Renaissance, the prestige and also the economic power that you had was very important in structuring the society. So this is, I mean, we were saying before about the board games. I mean, the video game is actually based on a car-based mechanics.
Okay.
This is one way that we found through experiments to somehow express the richness and complexity of the time and the field without making a complex game. So we want the game to be accessible really from like a 8 or 9-year-old child. So and we know that card games are very effective in this kind of projects. So this is one of the crucial ingredients of the game, and this is also why it will, if we reach our goals, it will be not only a video game, but it will also be a card, a physical card game.
Okay, interesting. So you're talking about goals. So you're hoping to fund this using Kickstarter, I believe, and so what other things apart from the game are you thinking of giving your pledges?
During my studies, I found Leonardo's sketches some drawings of common toys, kids' toys, like a spinning top or a yo-yo.
Yeah.
And Leonardo wanted to use them as scientific instruments, scientific means to try to understand or to demonstrate some physical law or stuff like that. So our project is to reproduce some of them and to put it in the box with a small booklet in which we will try to explain in a simple way this kind of experiments, and probably to put in the box to a reproduction of a real folio of Leonardo da Vinci.
High quality reproduction and as in fact the Kickstarter, one of the goals is to fund original research. In fact, nobody has taken the toys designed by Leonardo. They made toys of his inventions, but these are actually toys designed by Leonardo.
Designed as toys.
This would be the first time that they would be sort of reproduced, and also the booklet would be there will be a detailed study of the history of that toy, not only in Leonardo time, but where it came from, and we have found already paintings. We did the research, so it will be put in context.
Oh, that sounds really interesting. So good luck with that. Let's have a look at a few more of these inventions that we've got around here.
Yeah.
So we're outside the museum now. It's a beautiful day, I have to say. Alex, I was interested. How far away was Leonardo da Vinci actually born? Does anybody know this? Is he?
Yes, we are just away 2 kilometers from what it's supposed to be his birth house.
Okay.
And we restored it in 2011, and maybe later we can do a small round trip.
Oh, that'd be nice. Okay. Yeah. So Leonardo da Vinci wasn't actually a Florentine, because he didn't.
No, he wasn't a Florentine. His story starts in Florence because his father used to work there, and so he was an apprentice in Verrocchio's lab.
Right.
And he was one of the most important artists of the time in Florence. And then Leonardo used to work for a long time in Milan. And yes, we can say that the most part of his Italian work is in Milan, not in Florence.
I see.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't realise that. Okay, so what's the connection? Why do you think that the Renaissance was such a big thing? Why did it happen in Florence? What were all the factors that came together?
It's just a matter of economical power.
Yes, in fact, we we set the game in 1450, but actually for that age, I mean, it's the age of the splendor of the arts in Florence and in Italy. But actually, that was prepared by more than a century of economic expansion and actually of European and also close East and North African dominance of the network of Italian towns, and in particular of Florence. I mean, this was actually came because of a sort of industrial revolution that came thanks to the knowledge of the Arabs. The Italians learned from the Arabs the technology and the innovations, like common things like paper.
Yeah.
And Fabriano, and in Fabriano they had some slaves, Arabic slaves, and they started producing paper and many other kind of industrial products. And so this was prepared actually before the middle 15th century, which in a sense was already sort of decline.
Yeah.
And Italy was joining the agricultural Europe, which was technologically quite behind, and the needs of the Eastern markets. And this evolved in Florence into also a financial evolution, and then a financial dominance through being sort of inventing the modern notion of banks, loans, and checks. Checks were invented in Florence and in Prato, actually, but anyway, close to Florence. And this so became a sort of financial dominance of the whole of Europe through banking and loaning, not only to kings but also to the church, and this was very important.
Yes, because at that time, of course, Italy didn't exist as such. It was a fragmented area of smaller states.
Yes, actually the notion of nation state was emerging more in the rest of Europe than in Italy. It was, you should think, I mean, Venice was a worldwide independent power. It wasn't more like close to Florence as it could have been to Paris or the Kingdom of France. I mean, there was no real notion of Italy. But through this industrial and economic evolution, actually Italy was the strongest power in Europe. In fact, for a while, Florence was the most populous town in Europe.
Had the most people.
Had the most people, 90,000 people, more than Paris.
I see. Okay.
And what you have always to keep in mind is that all the process through all Italy has been absolutely driven by private money.
Okay. So this goes back to, say, the Medici and...
Yeah, they were actually, Medici were bankers, actually.
And they bankrolled a lot of the technology that was dreamt up by Leonardo.
Yes, yes. That's why we have so many artists, and so it became possible. I mean, also it was needed in a sense. I mean, they had this large population. You needed to have a quite evolved commerce to move on the food and exchange. And
Sure. One of the most important icons of that was the person of Lorenzo il Magnifico. Magnifico is Lorenzo the Magnificent. He made his image absolutely splendid and huge by by financing great art projects and great
So he was a sponsor.
He was a sponsor, really a magnificent sponsor, and he also was a very powerful figure. But he wasn't powerful through military power. So this is something that really comes into the game. Into our game, your power comes from your prestige, and the prestige comes from creating and building inventions and new ideas. So, and this was historical accurate actually.
Is there a geographical element to the game as well? I mean, I think about Florence and I think of it as the way into Europe almost, the crossroads perhaps of different cultures. I mean, you talk about the Arab world as well. There's the influence from the south and then of course you're straight into Europe from the north.
Yes, in fact, this was one of the many factors that led to the splendor of Florence at the time. And in fact, in the game, we picked the 12 most prestigious towns in Italy, and you can build your constructions in. You can pick in which town to operate. And in fact, the fact that you can, I mean, in modern times we tend to think of pastimes as much more segregated, but it was a world where people and power it was mixing, and people were moving from one town to the other. Leonardo's life for example, he worked for the King of France and the Duke of Milan and the Republic of Florence and so on. And the Pope.
And the Pope.
So is the Pope involved in the game at all? Is he a figure?
Yeah. He's one of the, characters that you can play. I mean, the Pope of the time, it was mostly a warrior and a banker. On the side, he was also a Pope. So it's very different from the spiritual leader that we see in our times.
Yeah,
very different.
So now we're inside, I think, one of the higher levels of the museum. Is that right, Alex?
Yeah. It's the Conti Guidi Castle. It's the core of this ancient town of Vinci.
Okay.
And it's a castle with a long story of modifications. And at the time of Leonardo, it was just a tower. Now it's a more complex building.
Yeah.
And here inside we have a part of the museum. And that's the part that we redesigned in 2010 with new exhibits and
okay. So yeah, there's some crazy things about. There's something above us that will never fly, but it's a good try. Yeah?
It's a good try. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So let's talk about the game a little bit more. Perhaps the mechanics, Pietro, you could talk about. Is it? You say it's based on a board game and there's cards. Are there dice?
No. It's based. There's no luck in the game. In fact, it's a strategy game. It's a simple strategy game. So you have to decide. So you have this book of the ideas, in which we collected some of the most some relevant and interesting ideas that came out in the Renaissance. And you start with a thin book, and you can decide which of these sort of blueprints to fill with the cards. When you fill the slot with the cards, the blueprint actually is ready to become something concrete. Then you pick in this armillary sphere. If you've seen Game of Thrones, you're familiar.
Oh no, I haven't. No.
In Game of Thrones, starts always with an armillary sphere, and you pick there which of the towns where you want to do your building, create your construction, and so there the town is actually built with tiles, and it's a spiral. We wanted to also make the players familiar with the typical Renaissance notion of square, piazza, which it's at the time of the birth of the ideal city. So of the fact that towns should be planned and designed, and the way to live in towns. So there you go. You pick your town. You have your blueprint. And the team of builders, which are actually the characters which you've seen in the cards, they go into the town and they try to build your building as close to the piazza as possible. So it looks like you're playing on a plane, a two-dimensional game. It's like a tower defense. So it's mono-dimensional. There's one part. Doing like a spiral. So this way we kept it simple for boys. So you live in a 2D space, but actually your playing is on a single path. So it's very simple. So you decide in which town and which idea, and the team goes and they create, and you see the animation of the construction. So by the game, by computing where your towns are, it computes how much earnings you have each turn, and also all the other characters, all the other signori, okay, the leaders of the towns, the lords. They're building their stuff in the 12 different towns, and so this decides who's winning and who's losing, but collectively, because there are two results. There's you may be the one who's gaining more points or not, but there's also the collective effort of these lords that keeps, we say, the Renaissance splendor burning. So if the lords build enough prestigious stuff, this bans the invasion of the King of France, which in fact historically determined the end of the golden age of the Italian Renaissance. So your prestige and your financial power is so strong that it keeps foreign powers at bay. Okay. In fact, I mean, in the approximation, we're saying foreign powers because, of course, the King of France and also, very important, the King of England was taking part, is a crucial part in the Italian politics of the time.
He's a player, yeah?
Yeah, he was a player. In fact, in early drafts, we had also them, but as in the end we went for simplicity of gameplay, we simplified something.
Okay. And so you were influenced a little bit by Game of Thrones, perhaps, or at least there's something in common. Is there any other games, Alex, that... I mean, what are some of your favourite board games? I mean, your father, obviously.
Well, I'm not a usual player because of the fact that I used to play a lot when I was a child with my father, and then I got completely annoyed by that.
You got burnt out. You got burnt out. Yeah, from the playtesting.
So I started playing.
He has an amazing culture about board games. But
I know quite a lot, but I don't play them usually. But I started again to play with computers, of course.
Yeah.
And but I'm most a fan of flight simulators and first-person shooters, strategy game like usual things like StarCraft and.
Which is almost a board game, right?
In some way, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And you.
But this is not direct influence for this game.
No.
For this game. Actually, the Game of Thrones part, I discovered a posteriori. We had already decided to use the auxiliary sphere, and when I saw the...
So they stole it from you?
Oh, yeah, of course,
okay.
Of course, yes. Well, one game that actually influenced us was Dominions. Because Dominions is a brilliant game because just by using cards, and then very simple, you have your hand, your 7 cards, and just by playing and putting the cards, you actually create dominions. So you create buildings in a way. You create structures. You create tricks and hands, and so that was an idea. So just by this, I mean, the fact that we are relating, somehow connecting the way, the set of cards that you play and the buildings that you build. Okay, these two things are somehow connected in the game. So this was one of the influences.
Not Settlers of Catan, perhaps?
Settlers, but it's also, one also discovered a bit a posteriori, but the techniques that he uses and the fact that it's a hidden card and tower defense game is Plants Against Zombies.
Oh, right.
Yes, it doesn't look so, but if you examine the game mechanics, it's actually a card-based tower defense.
Okay.
Monodimensional.
Right.
He has several dimensions, but each dimension is just one path.
Okay.
So if you analyze that, you will see that it shares some structure with what we're doing, and it has. And in fact, the game design of Plants Against Zombies is a great game designer because he worked so much on making the game accessible. So this is one.
And it was very successful, of course.
Pietro showed me Plants Against Zombies, and he said to me, "We have to do the same thing with Renaissance." And I looked at Pietro. What are you talking about? But with more time to think on that, we managed to do something that has to do with that.
Okay, so you're both intrinsically involved in the actual gameplay itself. You both
Yes.
The first design was a combined idea.
Combined idea. Then I did the JavaScript, because I did very early on a working JavaScript prototype, and just by having a working prototype on the browser, it's very ugly, so I'm not showing it to anyone. But as it was working, I understood some things in the model that were required. So like I needed for the book of ideas to evolve in time. So it starts simple, but then it adds more and more ideas, and the set of builders, the cards that you have available, that too expands in time. So in this way, we lead the player from a simple world to having more and more complex stuff, like building, I don't know, a mill versus a mill, but then it's maybe with mirrors you can create a defensive structure. One of the drawings of Leonardo.
Okay.
But yeah, so this JavaScript model was an extraordinary way to adjust many parameters of the game.
Yeah. So you're doing, instead of a paper prototype, you're doing a JavaScript prototype.
Yeah, and that's a very practical and quick way, and it's so easy to share with other people. And
when you have a Pietro that can do that, it's very easy.
It's not hard.
So are there any restaurants in the game?
Restaurants in the game, in that case, I would go from digital to analogical.
Shall we go for lunch?
Yeah.
Maybe an idea.
So Alex, where are we now?
Now we are on the top of the tower of the castle in which Leonardo da Vinci Museum is placed, and in the heart of one of the most beautiful countryside landscapes of the whole Tuscany.
And as part of your pledges, is there something connected to come in here to see these wonderful places?
Yes, actually, it's one of our pledges. You can, if you're really enthusiastic of the project, you can pledge for Genio game, and you will come here, and we'll bring you around and show you the lab where we make the machines, the museums, the Vinci, take you out for dinner, and I think you can enjoy the countryside. The Tuscan countryside is quite beautiful by itself.
So it's quite fitting that we're on a tower, because the game is a kind of, like you said, a tower defense type game. Was this tower actually here when Leonardo was young?
Yes, the tower was here. The rest of the building was not here, but yes, the tower was just like you see it in today. Yeah.
And it was one of the spots where you could see the best.
Very, very far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can see people attacking you.
Yeah. Well, in fact, Leonardo has designed so many siege machines.
Yes.
and catapults and things like this. And in fact, another high-level pledge that you can get, which is related to the museum, is that you can actually order a museum quality model of a Leonardo machine, which will be built by Alex and his colleagues in his lab.
Right.
So those also are a few pledges, because to build the model requires
some time, I imagine.
But the materials and everything in the model, it's
and each one is unique, I imagine.
Yeah. Realized in a high philological way.
Okay, that sounds good.
We document all the research behind it and the folios, the drawings, where it comes from.
Yeah, aren't you worried that perhaps you will you'll get too much money or too much interest?
Well, actually, there's a limit. You can set a limit on the number of pledges for each type of pledge. So
I see.
So there will be only a limited number of models, because it's not a skill that you can sort of.
It doesn't scale.
It doesn't scale now. The handcrafting of museum models.
No. Okay. No. Yeah, and so the stretch goals are to have an actual board game. Is that right?
Yeah, one of the stretch goals. Yeah, the board game will be made with a pack of cards. It will be the the Minions model. So,
So
you will get this pack of cards. Some will be characters, some will be buildings, some will be builders. And by playing this a card game, you will be able to, we hope, rebuild the spirit of the Renaissance.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, that sounds great. I'm looking forward to play. I mean, it will work just as well as a board game as a video game.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it, right?
We hope so.
Yeah. Okay. So here we are outside Leonardo da Vinci's supposed house of birth. I don't know, Alex, you want to say a bit about this building?
Well, it has been built, destroyed, rebuilt, redestroyed, and rebuilt many times in the years. But what we are sure about is that it was a property of the Da Vinci family till the half of 17th century.
Actually, the Da Vinci family, I mean, Leonardo was a bastard son of.
Really?
Yes, he wasn't officially son of the Da Vinci father.
I see.
Okay.
Yeah.
He was actually son of. She was like a farmer.
Yes.
Yes. And he was born outside the family, so to say. Okay.
So why did they decide to adopt this child into the family?
No, he was the child of his father.
I see.
Okay,
yes.
And so he didn't inherit anything here.
Mm-hmm.
I think so, no?
Well, it's a long story. He had many troubles about that when his father died.
Okay.
But he was living in Milan, and he abandoned anything because of the big troubles with brothers and
yes.
Yeah.
In fact, he took care of his natural mother his whole life. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, he was very affectionate.
Interesting. So does this come through in any of his work? His relationship.
There are many notes about this.
About his mother and what was happening, because in Milan he had quite some properties, and he was hosting his mother. No, she came to live with him in Milan. Maybe don't remember. Maybe.
Don't remember.
So Leonardo was born here, but he didn't die here.
No.
Where did he end up?
In France.
In France.
In Amboise.
He was working for the King of France. He was one of...
Francis I.
Francis I was a great admirer of Leonardo, of his works, and in fact gave him a space and all the means to work freely and create and do his paintings and researches.
But Leonardo was at the end of his life, so he did few things there.
Yeah. He was collecting stuff for his books, like the book on painting, and
he was trying to arrange in a better way all his notes.
He finally was planning to print. You know, the time the printing technique had taken Europe by storm. I mean, they say something comparable to today's internet. I mean,
Gutenberg.
After Gutenberg, the number of books in Europe they became millions in in 10 years.
Yeah,
really interesting phenomenon.
Did he have any last words? What was the last thing that he?
Well, the words that are supposed to be his last written words are the demonstration of a mathematical theorem.
Yeah, he was writing a proof of a theorem.
Yeah. And he goes on in the demonstration and he says, well, this is because of that and the other one, and et cetera, because the soup is getting cold.
Actually, Pietro, you got a bit of soup just there.
Okay. Well, you know, I'm related.